Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday, Sarah on Pet Talk. I am Sarah of Expat in Croatia, and every Friday at 5 o'clock Croatia time, I answer 5 questions from people who have sent them in on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, expatincroatia.com, email, my consulting sessions, and people who write them on a piece of paper and stick them to the back of my head. This is 5 Question Friday. I'm so glad you're here with me today. I am in Zadar. I'm visiting a couple of friends of mine because this weekend is my friend Maya's birthday. So I drove up here yesterday and we went bowling at this place in Zadar called ZYX Bowling, and it was super fun. They played all this 50s American music. It was a blast. And they have they have tons of food, and they have really good burgers. And I'm a bit of a burger snob. If anyone has heard me go on a tangent about burgers in Croatia, I am a burger snob. Most part, they are not done correctly. But this one was very, very good, with the exception of the fact that they did not have mustard, why? But it was delicious. We had a great time. And then this morning we had birthday cake for breakfast. If you would like to see that birthday cake, take a look at our stories. I'm very impressed because my friend Ricky, Maya's husband, he made this chocolate mousse cake, like super fancy. It's amazing. Very, very impressive. And that's what we had for breakfast. So I started the day off right. Tomorrow, to extend birthday weekend, Maya and I are going to the Falkensteiner, which is a big spa hotel resort thing here near Zadar. So we're going to go float like manatees in the pool at the spa, which I'm super jazzed about. I'll be like jelly by the end of the day. I can't wait. So I've got 5 great questions for you. So glad you're here. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Okay. So this first question actually came from a friend of mine named Roxana. She asked me, let me set some context. So it was quite apropos that she asked this question because 2 weeks ago, I think, we put out a post called from our How to Die in Croatia series, and this was all about wills, and she actually hadn't seen it yet, and then she asked me this question, and I was like, oh my God, your timing is impeccable. So last year, Roxana had twins, and they're so super, super cute. And she asked me, can I put who will take care of my kids if something happens to me and my husband? And that's such a great question because if you're a parent, then most likely you have thought about, well, what if something super tragic happens and both you and the other parent, if that's the case, dies? What happens to your child? You know, that's something that you probably think about as a parent. So this is something that she's now thinking about. So I went over to one of our lawyers in our network and I was talking to them about it, and they said that you can't actually make that decision in Croatia, which I thought was shocking. But then when I really started to think about it, because at first when I asked the lawyer this question, she was like, I don't understand. What do you mean? And my guess is the reason it came as such a shock is because in Croatia you have these really strong family units. You have grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins, and it's a whole village that takes care of a child. So if the parents were to die, there's like 1 million people that the kids could probably go to. So I can see why the Croatian government hasn't legislated for a scenario where if the parents die, they may not want their kids to go someone who's not a blood family member. Well, that scenario does exist. So I talked to the lawyer about it, and essentially what happens is in your will, you can put who you want them to go to. It just doesn't mean that it's going to be respected. So what happens is if both guardians or the sole guardian passes away, then the kids, their guardianship switches over to social services, and then social services is in charge of finding the next of kin. But if there isn't a next of kin, then they would go into the foster system. Now, if you have put in your will, if you have made some kind of publicly notarized declaration that there's a specific human or humans that you want your kids to go to in that kind of event, then it's very possible that social services will respect that. But you need to make that abundantly clear why you are alive so that there is no confusion about it after death. So that's super important. If you have not made a will yet and you have kids and you're living in Croatia, highly recommend that you do that. Use a lawyer to make sure that they put it as emphatically in your will as possible so that you have the highest chance of it being respected after death. And we, of course, can put you in touch with a Croatian lawyer who can help you with that process. So just send us a DM and we will be more than happy to do that. Like I said, we have this series, How to Die in Croatia, and our last edition was all about wills. So if you would like to see that guide, send us a DM and we'd be more than happy to share that with you. Okay, so the next question is from Cecilia. This came in on our 5-question Friday form. Can a third country national who holds temporary residence due to family reunification to a Croatian citizen work as self-employed? Yes. Yes. So if you are the spouse of a Croatian citizen and you have residence in Croatia, you are legally allowed to work just like a Croatian citizen can. That means you can go and get any job you want without having to obtain a work permit. You can open up your own business. You can register like a housework thing, which is a technical thing. It's not used very often. You can register as an artist. Like, you don't have any limitations on that. Your residence permit is a work and residence permit automatically, so you don't have to worry about that. That also applies to EU citizens as well, spouses of EU citizens. Now, there are a few other scenarios in which a spouse who has residence based on family reunification can work freely, and I have a list of those here that I want to quickly read to you. So in addition to spouses of Croatian citizens and EU EEA citizens, also spouses of those on the EU blue card, which is a type of work permit, spouses of those with permanent or long-term residence in Croatia, or those who have long-term residence in another EU or EEA member state, and spouses of researchers on a guest contract. So all of those spouses in those situations are free to work just like a Croatian citizen. We do have a guide that's completely about everyone who has the right to work in Croatia. So if you would like to see that, send us a DM and we will shoot that over to you. So not everyone has the right to work just because they have a residence permit in Croatia. So it's really important that if you want to work in Croatia, you understand what your rights are, your limitations are, what you need to do to get the right to work, because every single person's situation is different. Now, EU citizens always have the right to work from the very beginning. Third country nationals can only have the right to work in very specific circumstances. So we're more than happy to send that over to you if you have any questions at all about that. We do have a guide specifically just about family reunification as well, and it goes over all of those possible scenarios. Okay, this next question is from here on Instagram, Perigo. I hope that I pronounced that right. So this was a really fun one to do. I'm so excited about this one. Where in Croatia can you buy Croatian sheet music? I heard the magnificent Klapa Ragusavecia, I don't know if I pronounced that right, I hope so, in Cavtat last year. Subsequently stalked them on the internet and listened to all their YouTube videos a bazillion times. As a musician, I would love to have the sheet music with all the harmonies for some of those songs so I can reproduce this stuff at home. I think this is a great question, and I love Klapa. I really enjoy it. It just gives me goosebumps all over and chills through my blood. That's why I was so excited about this. So there were 2 people that I talked to about this particular question who helped me with the answers. So one is Carol Ann, who we call Cam, our newest team member at Expat in Croatia. She's a junior consultant, is going to be starting to do her own consulting sessions in September. You may have seen her videos on our profile. So she has been deeply entrenched in the folklore community in Croatia and now, in Canada, and now here in Croatia. So I knew she was one of the right people to talk to about this. So she said, organizations such as the Croatian Fraternal Union of America have a collection of sheet music, and she did provide me with a link to that. So if you would like to see it, please shoot us a DM. And then I also spoke to Nikolina Kukoc from Split Tech City. She does this amazing thing in her spare time. She is part of this female a cappella group called Ostrokonje, which that's a bit of a slang word here for bitch, apparently. But like a badass lady, essentially. And what they do is they sing like old Baba songs from the cello, but like exactly as they were sung generations ago. So whenever you hear people doing folklore songs in Croatia, most often there are arrangements, which means they are altered from their original state. And so in her music singing group, they don't do any arrangements. They are exactly, like, completely pure, like how the Babas in the Dalmatian cello were singing them, 40, 50, 60 years ago. And it's so beautiful. And if you ever get a chance to see them, I highly recommend it. They do have an Instagram account where you can follow them. I will put in the caption their Instagram handle so you can follow them. So when this question came up, I was like, I absolutely have to talk to Nicolina about this. So this is what she says. So she recommends going to otsmark.hr and note.hr. They have sheet music. Also, there's a Prast International Festival, which usually publishes sheet music as well. They have a website, and that's festivalklapaperas.com. Their section in particular, Notni Zapisi. So that is where you can get that. And then also she said a lot of Klapa sing arrangements made specifically for them. So approaching them directly versus via email or a Facebook page to ask for music for a specific song is also an option. And then Carol Ann, after we got that answer from Nicolina, she jumped in and said, for folklore arrangements, I reach out directly to the likes of Bojo Potichnik and Sinisha Leopold, who are basically celebrities in her circles. So reaching out is definitely the way to go. I would also let them know ask them what their fee is for their arrangements, because if they're willing, they may sell them to you between $100 to $500 US for something like that. So there are a lot of different options for getting arrangements. So if you want any of that information, send us a DM and we'll be happy to shoot that over to you. So thank you so much to both Cam and Nicolina for those answers. I see that we have a couple questions that have come in, so I'm just going to scoot back up here. Hey, it's me, Avi. Best places to visit in Zagreb. I will say this, I'm not a Zagreb expert because every time I'm in Zagreb, I'm there for work, and I'm usually going from my work thing to an Airbnb to a work thing to an Airbnb, but there are a few places that I really like. I really like the parks in Zagreb. Zagreb does parks really beautifully. I love Ribnjak. I love Zrinjevac. I love the Botanical Garden. Also, I love Grič. Is it called Grič or Gritz? There's this big old World War II tunnel that they just opened in the last few years. It was closed to the public for a really long time. And now they do art exhibitions in there. And so you can walk kind of from one end of the upper town to the other. So that's pretty neat. I love going to, it's called Cafe Bar, oh gosh, what's it called? AS, I think. It has an incredible view of the Zagreb Cathedral, and you have to kind of know it's there. You enter it from the upper town, and you go into a kind of a nondescript building, and then you kind of weave around some stairs, and then you come down to their terrace, and it's fantastic. I love going up, what's the name of that street? Tkalkačeva. Tkalkačeva is really great for people watching. So that street has become really populated with cafe bars and restaurants, and they have them on both sides, and it's pretty narrow. So if you go to Dolac's Market and you hang a left, that's Tkalkačeva. And I love going up there and plopping down and just people watching. There's a great Indian restaurant over there. There's also Otto and Frank, which has great breakfast. I love that. Maximir. How can I mention parks and not mention Maximir? I love Maximir. That one is the biggest park in Zagreb. So you can go on Maximir and not know that you're in a city. It just completely overtakes you. It's a forest and they have lakes in there, and we do have a guide in particular on Maximir. So if you would like to see that, send us a DM. So that's just a few things. If anything comes to mind before we end this broadcast today, I'll mention some more stuff. See, did I miss best places for live music? Oof, that one's a little bit harder. I mean, down in Split, live music hasn't really been a thing. Now we're starting to get a little bit of live music. Usually it's on the piazzas during summer, but we don't have like a we don't have any clubs that do live music, which is really kind of a bummer. But since we're kind of moving that direction with outdoor spaces, I'm hoping that eventually that's going to change. As far as Zagreb, we do have a list of great venues for live music. I don't have it memorized, but we have that list. So send us a DM and we'd be more than happy to send that to you. Thank you so much for the question, Sammy Joe. Okay, I'm going to scoot all the way back down. Okay. Sammy Joe has another question. So do you need to drive through Bosnia to get to Dubrovnik? Also, is it okay to do with a rental car? Yes, it's okay to do with a rental car, but most rental car companies are going to ask you if you're going to travel outside of Croatia, in which case they charge you a fee. And then you do not have to go through Bosnia anymore to get to Dubrovnik. They opened up Pelješac Bridge a little bit more than a year ago. So Pelješac Bridge allows you to completely bypass Bosnia and Herzegovina. So when you get down to past Ploče, you pass Ploče, you go through Neretva Valley, and then after Neretva Valley, you can take the Pelješac Bridge over to Pelješac Peninsula, and then you take a highway on Pelješac Peninsula, and then you bypass Stone, and then you reunite with the mainland, and then you go down past Slano and back down towards Dubrovnik. And I just did that for the very first time in May when I went down to Slano, and it was amazing. So you can completely bypass it. Now, there are signs if you still want to go through Bosnia, like it's still an option. You just have to intentionally, like, get off the road and go through Neum. But you don't have to do that anymore. And the bridge is really pretty and nice. So I actually took some video of going over the bridge back and forth. So at some point in the nearest future, we will post a video about that with some nice fun facts about the building of the Pelješac Bridge. But they had this giant opening ceremony with all these fireworks and everything. And I heard when I was in Slano, my friend Alexis told me that they now do like a 5K every year running across the bridge. So that's pretty cool as well. Thank you so much for that question. Okay. Hey, Mashi. I watch the replay every week from Australia, but today I'm joining live from Split. Oh, cool. That's awesome. I'm not in Split right now, but yay. Hey, I'm so glad to hear that you're watching our replay on Saturdays, because I would imagine it'd be pretty hard to watch it live given the time difference. So welcome. Welcome to Split. Okay. Now from Laura. Hi, Sarah. What website do you recommend to look for an apartment in Split? Nushkalo.hr. So Nushkalo. It's got a little yellow dog. That's kind of like Croatia's Craigslist. We do have a guide on how to find an apartment. So if you send us a DM, Danny will send that over to you. And also we have a colleague, a team member, Lucia Peric. She helps people find apartments in Split, which I usually recommend because it's really hard to find a place in Split. And if you're brand new to Croatia, then it can be hard to find something affordable because you just don't have access to the same kinds of connections. So if you use a local who can help you with that, then you have a better chance of finding some place that's not going to kick you out in April before tourist season, and also they can help negotiate a good rate on your behalf and you won't get taken advantage of. So if that's something you're interested in, of course, contact us. It's also, there's a form on our housing guide that you can fill out, and then Lucia will contact you about how to help you with that. On that note, I will say this. Anyone moving to Split, I always advise don't live in the center. I mean, I know everyone wants to live in the center, but you don't have to. Split is small. You can pretty much get anywhere in 20 minutes. And if you live in the center, you cannot escape the tourism chaos during summer. You just can't. And I don't know about you, but I don't like people peeing and vomiting on my doorstep. That's just me. And it's very loud. And you just can't escape it. Whereas if you live outside the city center, you can easily escape that for days or weeks at a time and then make the decision to go to the city center if you would like. Also, if you live outside the city center, your money's going to go farther, you're going to get a lot more space, and you're going to get a much more authentic Croatian experience because you'll be living in a neighborhood that doesn't have a bunch of Airbnbs, so it'll be you and Croatians rather than you and a bunch of tourists, because pretty much all the neighborhoods around, like in the Dead City Center, in the Palace, in the Old City, and then all the neighborhoods around that, like Radunica, Varoš, it's all tourists. That's all it is. There really aren't very many locals there anymore. Those neighborhoods have pretty much evaporated. So if you're coming to Croatia to live here long term, I always encourage people to meet Croatians, to mingle with Croatians, to go and hang out with where Croatians are hanging out. That's how you get that real experience. If you come to Croatia and you're not actually interacting with any Croatians, then you are missing out on the best part of being in Croatia. So give the outer hoods a chance. I've never lived in the city center, and I love that. There's definitely a bit of a divide between people who live in the city center and people who don't. I don't know how many people are going to get this reference, but I feel like because I live outside of the city center, everyone who's in the city center treats us like bridge and tunnel, as if it's like miles and miles away, and it's really not. It's like it's 5 minutes by bus. So I very frequently, if the weather's nice, I always walk to and from town. Like, it's not that big a deal. There's a bus system, so you can get around. They're all brand new buses, so it's much easier. So I always implore everyone to try not to stick to the city center, because you just may end up getting a bit frustrated in the end. And then whenever people get frustrated with the stuff like that, somehow Croatia gets blamed. But I'm giving you fair warning right now. Okay, let's see if we got anything else. Scrolling down. Ooh, look at everybody. Ooh, hey, me. Okay. All right, cool. Now, let's get back to the questions. All right, this one came in from Instagram as well. This is from 19ELAI. In some buildings of Croatia, the last floor usually have a common terrace, like the last floor, like the top floor, has a common terrace for the building and owned by all the tenants, owners of the building, but it's actually the last floor who are really using it because the access is there. My question is it possibly legal to purchase the shares of that common area from all the tenants and build another room for it to join the apartment? So I spoke to one of our property lawyers about this, and it's not a strictly yes or no answer. Some areas are good to be purchased, but some are not. It depends on whether they can be separate units, and there are a few other conditions surrounding that. So if you are in that situation and you're interested in purchasing that very top floor common area, then speak to a property lawyer who can look at the property records for that building to see if it has its own separate parcel. Because if it's not a separate parcel from the rest of the building, then it's a lot more complicated, if impossible completely. So it needs to be its own separate area. So I'll give you an example. I'm on the ground floor of my building, okay? I love the ground floor. On one side, I have a little garden. On the other side, I have a terrace. But that's not actually part of my lot. That's not part of my parcel. That's a common use area, except nobody uses it. I use it, and in my neighborhood, there are a lot of buildings that have that kind of garden area around, and whoever's on the ground floor, they kind of put a fence up around it. Now, I haven't put a fence up around mine because I don't want to colonize that quickly, but maybe in a few years, once I've earned the trust and respect of everyone in my building, then maybe I will do that. But for now, I'm not going to do that. So it's kind of like an understood thing that is the area that I can freely use and nobody else uses it. Nobody even walks through it. But that's not part of my lot, and that's not even a part that I could purchase if I wanted to purchase it. So, like I said, if this is something that you want to do in your situation, your building, then speak to a property lawyer so they can check out the records and see if it's possible for you. And we have lots of them. We actually have one in Split who would be the best person for this kind of question. So if you're interested in connecting with them, send us a DM and we'll be more than happy to send you over. Okay, all right, next question. Is this the last question? Yes, it is. Okay, so this comes from Irma here on Instagram. What are your thoughts on the healthcare here, or lack thereof? I'm here this summer on the island of Kirk, and I'm learning that as much as Croatia needs residents, it does not have the quality of care one expects, and let me start over. Okay. I'm learning that as much as Croatia needs residents, it does not have the quality of care one expects or has the privilege of experiencing in the U.S. Dire need of nurses and doctors to care for the elderly patients. Okay, there's a few things I want to say about this. So, for one, island care versus mainland care, two different things, okay? So on the islands, you're not going to have the same standard of care. They don't have hospitals. A lot of them are missing just kind of basic equipment like ultrasounds. If you have some kind of big emergency, you usually have to be care flighted to the mainland in a helicopter. So you just don't have as much access. And so that's one thing. She's mentioning the island of Kirk. That's why I'm mentioning that. Now, from my personal experience, because I do come from the U.S., so I know what U.S. healthcare is like, I like the Croatian system better. And this is why. So one, preventative healthcare is a big thing in Croatia. It is not in the United States. It's also much more affordable when you are coming from the American system. Like, whenever I have a consulting session with an American and they ask me about the healthcare system, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited to tell you. Because it's, it's 92 euros, I guess, if you're paying out of pocket. Like, I'm insured through my business, so it's much more expensive. But if I were paying out of pocket as a person who doesn't work in Croatia, it's 92 euros a month, which you'll pay 92 euros as a copay to go to the doctor when you are insured in the United States. So it's quite a giant difference. And because I also have Dopunsko, which is the supplement, which only is like 5 euros extra a month, you don't pay anything, like no copays at all. Go to the doctor, free. I had a friend, he was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma at Split Hospital, and within 2 years he was cured, never saw a bill, never paid anything. Friend had spinal surgery at Split Hospital, never saw a bill, never paid anything. I had a friend who had his hip replaced at an orthopedic hospital up in Opatia, had a great experience, never saw a bill. I have a friend who had her knee replaced at Split Hospital. Great experience, never saw a bill. Now, I'm not going to say that there aren't bad experiences to be had, because there are. I had a friend who had a gastro issue at Split Hospital, and it was really, really terrible. Now, this did happen in the height of COVID, so there were a lot of other mitigating circumstances, but she did not get great care. I went to Split Hospital once because I had a ear thing, and I gotta say the bedside manner was not super duper. I feel like he just jammed a needle in my ear, and it's like, oh, it's a miracle I got out of that. Now, there are negative experiences to be had, but I've had lots of negative experiences in the United States as well. So preventative care, much better. There are things that just get caught earlier, and it's much easier to get preventative care. And also, if something terrible happens to you, your life's not going to be destroyed over it. You're not going to lose your house, you're not going to lose your kids and your wife, or your job, or your car, or anything. Like, that's just not going to happen to you. So I would never want to go back to the U.S. system of healthcare. It doesn't make any sense to me. Doesn't. Now that I've experienced this, never would I want to go back. So I would also say this about the healthcare here. There's a public system and there's a private system, and it's very common for Croatians to supplement the public system with the private system. Now, why would they do that? Okay, so the private system, there are these things called polyclinicas. And polyclinicas are a practice that has multiple specialties within it. And why would someone go do that? So usually it's because they want to avoid a wait. So, for example, I needed to have my thyroid scanned a few years ago, and I just didn't want to bother with the wait time of the hospital or any of that mess. And so I just went there. I was able to make an appointment like 2 days in advance, and they went and did the scan, and it cost me like 60 euros right out of the gate. And that was great and easy. So if you go to Polyclinica for like a family doctor appointment, you usually pay 50 euros out of pocket. If you go for like a specialist, it can be more on the higher end, and the higher end is like 80 euros out of pocket, which would just be like a copay in the U.S. And the standard of care is really high. They all have ultrasounds in their office. Even the public doctors have ultrasounds in their office, which is fantastic. In the States, a lot of doctors don't have ultrasounds. You would have to go to a separate diagnostic center and make a separate appointment and sit and wait in the waiting room to deal with that. Whereas here, a lot of the times you can just do it in the office. It makes it so much easier. And then the standard of care for dental is really high. They do have dental benefits as part of the state healthcare, but everyone I know just goes to a private dentist because since there's dental tourism here in Croatia, it's really affordable. I spend 50 euros to have my teeth cleaned, and the x-rays are free, which is pretty rad. And I can do them whenever I want. I just say, hey, I would like you to scan my teeth, and then they do it. So those are my thoughts about the healthcare system. Now, I'm going to be brutally honest because I'm not going to sit here and just sugarcoat everything. The bad experiences that I have heard are predominantly when women are giving birth. Truth. I know a lot of women in Split who have gone to Zagreb to give birth, and that's a tough situation. Now, in the hospitals in particular, they tend to be a lot more bare bones than you might expect. Toilets without toilet seats on them. Sometimes I've heard people who've had to bring toilet paper. There's not a TV automatically. Like, there's a sign there that says you need to rent a TV to be here. So you may not have all the same creature comforts, but you're still going to get a certain standard of care. And if you are in the hospital, it's really important that you are super nice to your nurses, even if they are not super nice to you. Bring them chocolates, bring them blocks of coffee. Like, that goes a really long way. So in terms of the healthcare, it's really kind of a thing where you just kind of have to get used to it. Don't expect it to be exactly how it is where you are at home, because it probably is not going to be. But in time, I found that, at least, again, speaking as an American, the Americans I've seen here, for the most part, have really liked the system here, because it's night and day. It's not going to ruin your life if you get sick, and that is something that I am really glad about. I don't want to lose my house just because some disease I caught that was completely beyond my control just happened to find me. That's all I have to say about that. We have guides on all of the different kinds of health insurances and the healthcare system, so if you'd like to see any of that, please send us a DM. And as far as the lines, I'll quickly just go over this. So I had to have an x-ray a couple years ago. It took me 6 weeks to get an appointment. Then they couldn't see anything, so I scheduled an MRI, which was really just an appointment with a neurologist. That took 6 months to get. And then they're like, okay, well, you need to go for a physical therapy evaluation. That took 8 months to get that appointment. And then when I finally went for that, it was another 6 months for me to be able to get the treatment. But there is an insurance called Dodatno. That's the highest level of health insurance in Croatia. And having that kind of insurance will allow you to skip those lines. Now, it wasn't an emergency, so I've been really patient and I'm cool with it. But I could have gone private if I wanted to speed up that entire process. So there are options. You are not locked into the public system. If you want to supplement with private, you can do that, and it is reasonably priced. So I've pretty much covered the gamut. And like I said, we have tons of guides on this, so if you want to get any more information on that, you absolutely can. That is it, guys, for this week. So thank you so much to everybody. Oh, 19ELAI. I just answered your question, so catch it in the replay. So I'm going to have the replay up here in the next few minutes. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful that you share this Friday afternoon time with me every week. And, ooh, what do we have here? Here in Michigan, takes this long too nowadays, and I have some of the insurance here to see my main doctor. I have to schedule 6 months to see her. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, you know what? In hindsight, now that I think about it, there are some Americans in the States who said that it has taken them a really long time to get an appointment these days. So it's too bad that now you're migrating to that kind of wait time while the cost is still the same, or if not more than it could ever has been. Okay, that's it, guys. I'm going to go and enjoy some time with my friends up here in Zadar. I wish you a beautiful weekend. I hope you all stay cool wherever it is you are. And I can't wait to see you for our next episode of 5 Question Friday next Friday. Bye, bye, bye. Vidimo se, ciao.